And we are recording now. So I'm going to go back to Reverend Kettle goes through a review first. So this is a review of last week, and then he'll go forward with the new material for this week. Okay, so we're going to start with
creating us, giving us both the physicality of our physical body, responsibility during our growing period, and the spirituality that we live for and ultimately live in the spirit world eternally. Okay, quick review from last week. I have spoken, I will do it, part 1. That was last week, Malachi 2:15. I think that's not correct on the Malachi issue. Anyway, the model course for overcoming Satan. God will set up 3 people, and we saw that the family, nation, and world level, and the seed, the image, and the substance. Last week we talked about the seed, the foundation for God's only begotten son and only begotten daughter within the family of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. True Mother has her own spiritual foundation. This does not negate the love and support that True Father gave her. Becoming the bride of the Lamb, the bride of the Messiah, occurred in 1960 at their holy wedding. Before that, her sisterly heart was nurtured when she lived as a chaste life as if she were a nun, from her own words. And prior to that, she was heaven's mother, wife, and sister. True Mother's essence was that of a filial daughter. That's her foundation. The cornerstone for True Mother's victorious life was her pure birth, born as God's only begotten daughter, which included a growing period with a responsibility. True Mother's foundation comes from heaven and consists of both the foundation of faith and substance, restoring Eve's original position. When we look at Eve and what she lost in the fall, she lost filial love. She did not follow God's commandment, and she trusted and talked with the archangel. She lost conjugal love. She was told not only to not eat, but also she ate the fruit and gave some to Adam. She lost siblings' love. As a sister, Eve should not touch or be touched. That's during the adolescent period prior to marriage, abstinence before marriage. And the parental love was lost. She co-created Satan's evil lineage and lost the mother of all living. So Rachel's faith in establishing the foundation of faith, Rachel's faith was tested in 4 ways. First, with her deceitful father, Laban. He switched brides on the wedding night. But Rachel continued honoring her father, especially with the help of Jacob. He was willing to work another 7 years for Rachel. And this restored filial love. Next, Rachel's faith was tested by her husband's angry rebuke. When she went to her husband saying, "Give me children or I will die," he rebuked her and said he has nothing to do with it. He's not God, is what his answer was. Rachel continued to love Jacob, and she sought another way to have that fulfilled, how she could have children even, as a surrogate or, through her handmaid. So she restored conjugal love. She continued to love Jacob. Rachel restored her jealous elder sister, Leah, and we know the story of the mandrakes, and Leah helped her. This is the second son. This was the second son born. The first one was Dan, and the second one was Naphtali. And then she said, "I struggled with my sister, and I prevailed." It means that she overcame the resentment of being the second wife, because in order for Dan, the first child, to be born through Bilhah, Rachel made herself not one of 2 wives, but one of 3 wives, and she realized, being one of 3 wives to Jacob is a small price to pay for motherhood, and she overcame her resentment against Leah, who was the elder and first wife. And therefore she restored siblings' love. Finally, with infertility, This is the story of the mandrakes, and she was able to give birth to her son Joseph, and through that, then she was able to experience motherhood and restore the parental love. So she restored all four of these loves. Then on that foundation, Rachel is now leading. We see that in the Bible. And this position changes. Even the order of their name changes in the Bible. And then Rachel steals the idols. She now takes the lead. So in Genesis 31, 14 to 16, it's very clear that the names, instead of Leah and Rachel, the names are Rachel and Leah. Rachel is mentioned first. The sisters are united together, united against their father, Laban, and united with their husband, Jacob. That's a quick summary. You'll need to go back and review the tape if you'd like more. Basically, the foundation of faith and foundation of substance was established. This is a great victory, paralleling the foundation for the Messiah. The only begotten daughter was established. Within Jacob's family, there were these two foundations, the foundation for the Messiah. Jacob did that, reclaimed the birthright and blessing, fled to Haran, built an external environment through his animal husbandry, took dominion over the angel, and won Esau's heart. On the matriarchal side, Rachel reclaimed the four family loves tested by her father, husband, sister, and infertility, won the heart of Leah, and took dominion over idol worship. So we see this foundation established. And then later, even on in the Bible, we hear the cry of really God's heart from the spirit world, as it were. This is the voice of Rachel from the spirit world. A voice is heard in Ramah, mourning and weeping. Rachel is weeping for her children, refusing to be comforted because they are no more. The Jews are now being taken as captives into Babylon. And Rachel is crying profusely at that moment. So we see the heart of God's feminine love for, children expressed at that point. So the foundation for the birth of God's only begotten son and only begotten daughter are now secure. God has that. God now needs a nation, raises up Israel so that these conditions can bear fruit. This leads us to the presentation today, the second part of the third chapter. I have spoken, I will bring it to pass. I have spoken, I will bring it to pass. I have purposed, and I will do it, showing God's resolve. We'll talk about the last part, building a national foundation for the only begotten daughter and only begotten son. This is building a nation, the image course that we talk about, model course for overcoming Satan. In The Value of True Parents for Heaven's Providence, published this year, in order for Heavenly Parent to send the only begotten son and only begotten daughter at the same time, the chosen people of Israel had to fulfill their responsibility to create the foundation to welcome both of them at the same time. How did that happen? I think the key and the central point of that is in Moses' 10 Commandments. And in these 10 Commandments, I will divide them into two and look at the first 5 and then the second 5. So in the first set, 1 to 5, these commandments, they are vertical in nature. They're establishing a vertical relationship. They restore the individual into the image of God, which is what we are meant to do. The first commandment, only one God. The second commandment, no graven images. The third commandment, respect God's authority. Don't take his name in vain. Fourth commandment, keep the Sabbath. And the fifth commandment is also vertical. Honor your parents. So we honor God as a parent, and we also honor our own physical parents. So that alignment, that vertical alignment is there, and we create filial piety and good character. Our character, we then take dominion over our character, our essence, as it is. The second set, 6 to 10, these commandments are horizontal in nature. Couples and families in the image of God. So the first one is talking about the individual relationship with God, and now it's what Tyler Hendricks would call relational ontology. I love that word. Thank you, Tyler. That should be number 6. Number 6 is do not kill. Number 7, no adultery. So control your anger, control your sexuality. Do not steal, control your selfishness. Do not lie, control your speech. And do not covet, control your desires itself. So control your action and even control your desire. Very important. In these 10 commandments, something unique has happened. In all world history, this was the first time that religion has embedded into the rock of their faith these 2 commandments. You shall not commit adultery, number 7. And then number 10, you shall not covet your neighbor's wife or property. So this understanding the fall and the relationship of sexuality involved in the fall, especially the change of blood lineage, this is critically important. So God is telling and setting up a model. This is not just for the Jewish people. This is meant to be a model, ultimately, for other nations and for the world. Don't commit adultery, don't do it, and don't covet your neighbor's wife. Don't even think about it. So control your actions, even control your mind. Even control your mind. These 2 tablets of stone lay the foundation on a national level. 2 things are happening. One, we can say the first 5 are like the foundation of faith, restoring what Adam and Eve lost. They did not keep God's commandment and did not build that filial relationship with God. The second part was the relationship with the archangel, the love relationships. So it's restoring the foundation of faith and substance on a national level. In addition to that, Father gives other insights. Moses received the 2 tablets inscribed with the word at the end of a 40-day period for the separation of Satan. Accordingly, the 2 tablets symbolized restored Adam and Eve, and also symbolized Jesus and his would-be bride, who were to come as the incarnations of the Word. Incarnations of the Word. Let's now look at some of the Jewish culture that has emerged from this clear explanation of the importance of really these 2 tablets of stone and the culture that emerges. Dennis Prager. He talks about Judaism's sexual revolution. When Judaism demanded that all sexual activity be channeled into marriage, it changed the world. Torah's prohibition of non-marital sex quite simply made the creation of Western civilization possible. Amazing insights. This is very true. Societies that did not place boundaries around sexuality were stymied in their development. The subsequent dominance of the Western world can largely be attributed to the sexual revolution initiated by Judaism and later carried forward by Christianity. So this is the foundation that is being established. Dennis Prager, you will know him from the Fireside Chats and his recent, hospitalization that he's going through right now, his injuries. We pray for him. So Moses' 10 Commandments, from God to Moses on Mount Sinai, this is the origin of the Jewish legal system, the laws in Israel. It's also the basis for the United States Constitution. We take the Bible as that foundation, one nation under God. And Father Moon explains also that this is the foundation for world peace, that nations need to implement this concept of how do you build families, how do you build marriages, how do you build relationships of love within them. And this is what Father and Mother Moon are doing. Mother Moon, particularly after Father Moon's ascension, she went around the world kind of a show and tell, and she would go inside the parliament buildings, in these parliament buildings, or it was most often the parliament building itself, and she would conduct a marriage rededication ceremony. She's trying to tell the nation, if you want your nation to develop and be prosperous, you've got to institute marriage reforms at the highest level. So inside the parliament building, let's have a marriage rededication ceremony. She there attended those programs in Sao Tome, in Niger. She was in West Africa. She went into Asia, in the parliament building in Cambodia. She was in Palau. She was in Nepal. So these things she's trying to do a kind of a show and tell as she would go around the world. This is how you do it, how important it is. Celibacy is not a Jewish tradition. Christians need to note this. Being fruitful and multiply in Genesis 1:28 are taken as covenants. Marriage in this view in mind is a duty incumbent upon every adult Jew. The Talmud stipulates that a husband who refrains from sexual relations with his wife may be taken by her as grounds for a divorce because she can't multiply. She cannot have children. A single man who's over 20 years old could be compelled by a rabbinic court to marry, though it does make exceptions for students. Its purpose of explaining this is to show how serious the Jewish culture was. They took Moses' commandments and they said, we need to bring them into the laws of our nation. Judaism forcefully rejects the claim that never marrying is an equally valid lifestyle to marriage. A life without marrying is less holy, less complete, and less Jewish. Only a married man was allowed to be a high priest, and only a man who had children could sit as a judge in the Jewish Supreme Court, the Sanhedrin. If we just look at Wikipedia, in the traditional Judaism, marriage is viewed as a contractual bond commanded by God in which a man and a woman come together to create a relationship in which God is directly involved. Though procreation is not the sole purpose, Jewish marriage is traditionally expected to fulfill the commandment to have children. In this view, marriage is understood to mean that a husband and wife are merging into a single soul, which is why a man is considered incomplete if he is not married, as his soul is only one part of a larger whole that remains to be unified. So at the very beginning of Judaism, this is a picture of Jacob and Rachel meeting her at the well. The Jewish culture, history, and religion are saturated or permeated, impregnated with marriage. In Isaiah, you shall no longer be termed forsaken, and your land shall no more be termed desolate. But you shall be called, my delight is in her, and your land married. For the Lord delights in you, and your land shall be married. So the whole purpose of Judaism is to create this culture of marriage because that's what God needs. He's got the condition for the begotten son and begotten daughter to be sent. But he also needs not just the condition, but the culture to go with it. I made this statement recently that an unmarried Messiah is completely unthinkable within the context of Judaism. Then one question came up. Was John the Baptist married? If he was unmarried, then why would the people ask him if he was the Messiah? So how could the people ask John if he's the Messiah if they have to have a married Messiah? John is unmarried. So if we go back and look at that verse, John 1:19-21, and this is the testimony of John. When the Jews sent priests and Levites from Jerusalem to ask him, who are you? So they did not ask John, are you the Messiah? They didn't ask. They asked, who are you? He confessed, and he did not deny, but confessed, I am not the Christ. I'm not the Messiah. But they asked. So the question is still valid. Was John married? So I went to Mr. Sobey, Howard Sobey.
I'm just going to skip a little bit here. There we go.
To reject Jesus as the Messiah would be because he was unmarried. That's how strong this concept of marriage is. It seems Paul was trying to explain that even though Jesus was not married, he can still be the Messiah. He did this by elevating celibacy above marriage. It was unprincipled. Ultimately, it weakens the institution of marriage, placing the unmarried individual above marriage. Marriage alone has the sole position as our highest spiritual achievement. This is what St. Paul said, 1 Corinthians 7:38. So that he who marries his betrothed does well, and he who refrains from marriage will do better. Clearly, he is indicating, marriage is below celibacy. But Paul's advice about marriage and celibacy is just that, his advice. He says as much in the 25th verse, and I'm quoting now. Now, concerning the unmarried, and this whole chapter deals with a lot of that, concerning the unmarried, I have no command of the Lord, but I give my opinion. Whoa. Celibacy is preparation for marriage, not its replacement. This is according to God's ideal of creation. The ideal of marriage is also the fulfillment of the providence of salvation and the conclusion of biblical prophecy. The correct reply was to teach that Jesus should have been married. But instead, he made this reversal. I'll put a caveat here because I've also heard fathers say that during the course of restoration for Christianity, because Jesus couldn't get married, then Father said there needed to be priests and nuns who would lead a celibate life as an offering or sacrifice, but ultimately that needs to be corrected now, and we're trying to do that, not to disparage others, but to set the record straight. So, God was preparing the Jewish people for the birth and the marriage of his only begotten son and only begotten daughter. We see that in Scripture, and now we also see that in their culture. There was no other environment on earth that was better prepared for Jesus' holy wedding at that time than the nation of Israel. Wow. So the nation of Israel, the idea that, the holy wedding should take place in Jerusalem, the holy Jerusalem, the city of David, and that should be the place where this holy wedding took place. That was God's ideal in raising up these people for that. I'll just jump a little bit into the next presentation as I have time. And we see now that there are, on the world level, because of Jesus' life, which we'll talk about in the next presentation, two things are happening. God wanted Jesus to get married. That's the purpose of preparing the Jewish people. That's what we are saying. And Jesus' crucifixion was also God's will. So we're saying both of those in the unification movement, in the Family Federation. We're saying both. God wanted Jesus to be married, and Jesus' crucifixion was God's will. How could that be? People often think in a framework that is mutually exclusive, an either-or dichotomy. Either Jesus should have been married or he should have been crucified. Either one or the other is possible, not both. That's the way people think, oftentimes. And since so much of Christian theology focuses on Jesus' crucifixion, as it should, It means that even considering his marriage has been unthinkable. Case closed, no discussion. Ironically, the opposite is true. As will be shown in our next presentation next week, and then we'll have a vacation because of Christmas coming up in our WCLC anniversary coming up on December 30th. I hope we have some advertising here afterwards. Ironically, the opposite is true. As will be shown, understanding that God's original plan was for Jesus to get married adds tremendous value. I can't emphasize that. That we probably don't understand the fullness of the sacrifice Jesus made without understanding that he should have been married. We don't really understand the value and meaning of the cross to its fullness. That's what I'm saying. And that's true. And we will see that next week. It adds tremendous value and meaning to his crucifixion. Additionally, both the marriage of Jesus and his crucifixion could advance God's providence, obviously in different ways, but nevertheless, God's providence would move forward. How is that possible? The answer to that question is the purpose of this presentation, which will lead us into the next week. So again, if you have questions or comments, please post them in the chat group. I will address them. You can also send comments later if you'd like, and I will look at them and respond to them as I can. Thank you very much.
Great. All right. Thank you. Here we go. We're back again. Ashley King. I don't know Ashley King has come. Does anyone know Ashley King? Okay. All right. So so we have 20 minutes to discuss and talk about it and review. So probably some of those points are new. As Dr. Kittle said, we're not wanting to disparage anyone, just trying to set the record straight is the purpose. We don't want to hurt anyone. Okay, so there's the idea that Jesus should get married. Well, first of all he talked about that Rachel set all the conditions for the birth of the only begotten daughter. So externally, Jacob set the conditions for the birth of Jesus, the only begotten son. And then Rachel, the same family, set the conditions for the birth of the only begotten daughter. Right, so that was the first content that he did. Then he talked about marriage. So this was new to me. A lot of it was new to me. That really God was preparing that whole culture of marriage for Jesus, for the coming of Jesus on the earth. So, and God's hope was for Jesus to marry. And I was really moved by the thought of Jesus in Jerusalem, a big wedding, big celebration to celebrate Jesus's wedding. Okay, so we know that didn't happen. Then Reverend Kittle ended with what's going to come up next week, but that's his saying really, really both options are true. That Jesus could marry, also that the crucifixion of Jesus actually promoted it continued God's providence. And I think last week or the week before, at some point, Reverend Kittle talked about this is not, if Jesus had not gone to the cross when the people didn't believe in him, then that providence would have been lost. So Jesus really saved God's providence through going through the crucifixion. So I think he's going to discuss that more next week. That'll be week 7. So we're just so this is week 6 today. Okay, so any comments? We have plenty of time to comment and discuss and anything that's bothering you. Ashley King, we're glad you joined us. You can listen in, see what you say. And if you tell us who you are, then we can let you talk. So, anyone want to comment?
Yeah, I have a question.
Sure.
Maybe you could ask this of Dr. Kittle.
Yeah.
He focuses on Rachel,
Yes.
but it's Leah who is the mother of Judah, and Judah is the line to King David and Jesus. Why focus on Rachel when her sons don't really appear much in the Bible, but Leah's son, Judah, is where Jesus comes from. Leah is Jesus' great, 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 great grandmother. Makes more sense to me biblically that Leah is the woman who set the conditions, not Rachel. Has somebody asked him or discussed this?
Yeah, actually, I'm sorry I cut out that point was at the beginning and he explained a question from someone. Do you want me to just play that portion? Should I
Try
go?
to just explain it. What happened? What
Well,
Leah's the
okay, so in terms of Leah and Rachel, he said that actually they had united at that point. So then, yes, the son could come from Leah, but they were together at that point. They had united. So there were the four conditions, but one of them was the unity of Leah and Rachel. So then, uh, but Rachel set the internal conditions. He was also explaining that actually the question went back to the four sisters, like Tamar, going back, and he was saying that they actually established the external condition for the nation of Israel. So Tamar and Rahab, I forget, there were four sisters, four different time periods in the development of Israel. So, but that was external, and this was the internal condition for the birth of the only begotten daughter. So that for God to give birth, he needed that internal condition where she overcame all those different tests, the four different tests that he matched. And then, as I mentioned, then they were united. Rachel and Leah had united together. So then, yes, then God could use Leah's lineage because they were united. Did that explain?
so he discusses the value of Leah in a further sermon or lecture.
Well, the first at the beginning, actually, it's just it's a long discussion. It's just before he starts the review. And I thought, well, I wanted to start because actually last week Ella commented it's kind of long, so I was trying to shorten the content.
Mm.
We have time to go back there if you want to look at it. If I didn't, should I share that?
Well, probably it's only interesting to me.
I don't know. Joyce, do you want to know?
It would be interesting to hear.
Okay, yeah, let me go back and look at that. Let's see if I can go. Uh, Here it is. So the question was from Magnus Larson. Uh,
Explicitly named in Jesus' lineage and named by True Father as instrumental in restoring the lineage, not mentioned by you as a model course for Eve's restoration. Rachel's children are not part of Jesus' lineage, which proceeds through Jacob's eldest son, Judah. As you noted, citing True Mother, the foundation for both the Messiah and the only begotten daughter stems from the same restored lineage. This is an important question and comment. Thank you for asking, and I'll go extensively a little bit. Dr. Jin Jun Kim explained to me that True Mother told him on several occasions that the four women in Jesus' lineage named in Matthew's gospel were not the foundation for her birth as God's only begotten daughter. I will try to explain why that might be. This is my explanation. The four women in Jesus' lineage mentioned in Matthew, that's Tamar, Rahab, Ruth, and Bathsheba, played a vital role in the external aspect of building the nation of Israel. They are, however, not part of the deeply internal foundation for the only begotten daughter. There are four reasons for this. First, to indemnify fallen ancestors, God worked through the Jewish people by covenants. These four women are outside God's covenant. Tamar, Rahab were Canaanites. David's great-grandmother Ruth was from Moab, a hated enemy of the Jews, and Bathsheba would have been regarded as a Hittite because her husband Uriah was a Hittite. Second, only one condition, the foundation for the Messiah, was needed to indemnify Adam's mistake. Why would it take four women setting four conditions over centuries to restore fallen Eve? Heaven needs just one successful model. Third, from the viewpoint of heaven's moral standard, the actions of these women are, well, very questionable. Certainly God can forgive their unprincipled action and use them for the greater good. But heaven requires a pure internal condition for restoring his begotten daughter. Finally, four, since the fall took place within the confines of one family, i.e. the first family of Adam and Eve, it makes sense that the conditions to restore both the first ancestors should also be set within one family. As mentioned, these four women did not play a part in establishing the foundation for the only begotten daughter. Nevertheless, they did participate in important positions in God's providence to build the external foundation for the Jewish nation, Israel. Respectively, each worked to expand the groundwork for God's providence on the family level, Tamar, on the tribal level, Rahab, on the racial level, Ruth, and on the national level, Bathsheba. This should have culminated in the world level centered on Mary. Ultimately, God needs one pure heavenly couple, the begotten Son and the begotten daughter, free from remnants of the fall, to consummate a new heavenly lineage on earth. This was God's original ideal. Just as men were used to establish the foundation for the Messiah, women will be used, central players, in establishing the foundation for the only begotten daughter. In this way, the Jewish patriarchs and matriarchs were used by heaven to create the two foundations that restored fallen Adam and fallen Eve, respectively. Regarding Jesus being born from Leah's descendants, I would suggest that once Rachel and Leah unite, God could use either one for the birth of Jesus. That is the purpose and benefit of their unity. If Rachel and Leah had not united, then God would not be able to use either one. So their unity gives God more options so that he can choose the best family among all the tribes of Israel for the glorious birth of Jesus. Once a nation is secure, tribal lineage becomes secondary. More important in choosing the parents of Jesus would be things like the quality of their lives of faith, inborn nature and personal characters, their positions in society, including financial security. So thank you for that, Marcus. Thank you. Let's go to our presentation for today. Keys. Matthew 16:19. I will give you the key to the kingdom of heaven.
Okay.
You bind on earth will be bound in heaven. This is God's original principle, ideal purpose of creating.
There we go. Okay, now I can. Are we set? You can hear me?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. All right. Did that answer, Pastor Frank? Did that help?
Well, that's an answer, but no, I don't get it.
Okay, so that's at the beginning. That's week 6. That's actually the beginning of Dr. Kittle's discussion. If you want to look at it again, it kind of yeah. So
Well, I always have appreciated Leah because she was very faithful and is the mother of Judah. And Judah's the guy who saved Joseph, and Jacob, he saved Jacob's life. I appreciate Judah very much. He was turned out to be a wonderful person who saved all the tribes. So dismissing Leah, to me, I just don't understand that. I can't grasp it in my heart.
right. Well, he's not dismissing her. He's saying that Leah and Rachel united. Leah was the elder sister who, and then of course, but actually Rachel is the one who went through the 4 different levels of understanding, of changing, transferring. So, for example, she overcame the feeling of resentment toward her sister, Leah, who, Rachel was supposed to be married to Jacob, and then the night before, then their fathers switched. Do you remember that story? That's the one I remember, that the father switched, and then Leah was married instead of Rachel.
That's right. Yeah.
So Rachel is the one who had to overcome
Well,
that.
then I think it would make more sense to me to say that the lineage of Jesus is Leah and Rachel, not just Rachel.
Okay.
Doesn't that make more artistic sense? It's not just Rachel by herself, it's Leah and Rachel united together are the foundation for the coming of the Messiah.
Okay, that's a good
This
point.
just seems to me more sense, more artistic, more biblical. Anyhow,
Yeah,
what
great. Anyone else? Joyce, have a comment on that?
No, I don't. Just listening. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, so I didn't recognize the value of the 10 Commandments. I mean, I knew there was 10 Commandments and I studied them and stuff, but the value, actually, God wanted those 10 Commandments to be not just for the for Judeo, but actually it was meant for the world, for all the nations to follow. So and like he said, yeah, we're just trying to set the record straight, as Dr. Kittle's comment. He's not trying to judge anyone. Uh, any other thoughts? Makuni, you can weigh in if you want.
I do like the thought of marriage as central to the Jewish nation. It clearly is. And
Yeah.
they match people, get married. Also, by the way, it's true, Paul was celibate. But Paul mentioned that very few people could be like him and be celibate. He said he didn't burn sexually. And so he suggested if you do, you should get married. And by the time he is sending Timothy to be bishop of Corinth, then he tells him if anybody wants to be a bishop or leader in the church, he must be married to one wife, right? That becomes a command to the Christians. That's why Martin Luther after the Reformation, then he made it so that all Lutheran and Protestant ministers marry. He
Right.
said that goes back to Paul's statement to Timothy and to Genesis 1:27 and to Jesus Mark 10:6.
Yeah, I
So
think
that's why Protestant ministers marry.
so. I think he quoted verse 25. I forget the chapter, but I remember it was verse 25 that he's saying, oh, it's basically that Paul was still holding celibacy above marriage, whereas we understand marriage is like the image of God, masculine and feminine together.
But that's not the only thing he said. And I think that's the main point. Paul's message about marriage progresses from a celibacy is the best ideal to if you want to be a leader of the church, you must be married to one wife.
I see. So Paul,
His ideas progress from
that's,
his initial statement of celibacy is the best to a leader must be married.
that's a good point. So if you,
Also, by the way, Paul also mentions that a woman giving birth is a type of salvation for her, that actually saves her. I'll look up where the verse is, but I know I've read it and preached it before.
okay, so how does giving birth save her?
Because you're giving birth to God's children.
Oh, okay. There you go. Well, we know
Right?
it's
It's mother is saying, and I believe this is true, that maternity is divine. Maternity comes from God. So a good mother loving her children is the image of God on earth, as Genesis 1:27 says.
Mhm.
Right there, God made them in his own image, male and female created he them. That is, the image of God is feminine, but in the past, because of the fall of man, people didn't recognize the divinity of maternity.
okay. Joyce,
Anyhow,
any thoughts today, Joyce?
No, I'm just taking it in, and then some of it is a little bit for me to digest, but I'm listening.
I know. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. So next week he'll continue and he'll discuss how the crucifixion is actually continued God's providence. So the crucifix. So his simple point was to say that uh, Jesus marrying or Jesus going to the cross was God's providence. Well, the difference would have been if Jesus had said he would not go to the cross, then that would have stopped God's providence, which would have been disastrous. So in both of those cases, and then actually we do tend to think of one way. Oh, it either has to be you get married or he goes to the cross. That's a typical way for people. Okay.
yeah.
A lot of good topics. Pastor Frank, any final closing thoughts here?
Yeah, Malachi 4:5 explains that both prophecies were possible. Malachi 4:5.
Okay.
Anyhow, sorry I have to go to work at 10. I have an appointment,
Oh,
so I have to
great.
go.
Thank you. Thanks for
God bless
joining.
you.
Okay,
Thank you,
thank
Pastor
you.
Frank. God bless you.
Bye.
All right. McCooney, you want to close us off then? It is
Sure.
time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
of course.
Or you can also make a comment if you want. Or
No, yeah, I think my only comment was just that there was a lot that I learned, a lot of new things I haven't heard. And I was also really moved actually by the how he was explaining how Jewish culture really promoted marriage and was one that was kind of preparing a foundation for the holy wedding. Yeah, that was my first time hearing about that. And actually Pastor Frank's comments about how even Paul promoted it within the Christian realm. Um, yeah, just seeing like marriage like beyond just like a worldly ceremony, but the religious values behind it. And I think how cult has really shaped it actually through the religious kind of understanding, it has shaped the rest of the world's view on marriage. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. Just learned a whole lot today. So
great.
I was
Thank you.
grateful.
Okay.
Uh,
So we are
and
being recorded, as I guess everyone remembers, we're being recorded. So
that's right. That's
yeah.
right.
Okay.
All right. So with that, I think we can close out for today as we are at our time. Actually, I don't think I've asked you yet before, but Uncle Bill, would you like to close us out in prayer?
Sure.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Loving Heavenly Parent, we're so grateful that we could gather today and we can study your word and your heart, understanding more deeply, trying to understand how your providence and how you work. We're so grateful to Jesus for the sacrifice he made. And we want to understand more deeply. We want to understand really what was in his heart and mind when going to the cross and the salvation that he brought to us. So we thank you for all the understanding. We're grateful for this message that comes from the World Christian Leadership Conference, Dr. Kittle's series, and we're grateful to you. We thank you, and in Jesus' name and in Christ's name we pray. Amen.
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 Thank
God
you.
bless you. Thank you, Uncle Bill. God bless you, Minister Joyce. Thank you to Ashley King and your wonderful couch for joining us.
Yes,
Please
yes,
have
Ashley
a
King, the mystery of Ashley King. Okay,
please
thanks for
come back
joining us,
again.
Ashley. There we go.
All right. Thank you,
Thank,
everybody. Please have a
thank,
wonderful week. We'll see you next time.
thank
God
you.
bless
Bye.
you.
God bless.
God bless you.